What is up? My name is Bree. You might also know me as Chicken Chaser Bree. This is my new series that I am calling Chicken Chaser Chats, where I answer your questions about chickens. I'm going to be doing a new video every single week, so if you have questions about chickens, be sure to drop them in the comments and I might answer yours next week. Today's question is, how many chickens should I start with? I think this is a great question because there's really no right or wrong answer here, but I do have some advice for the new chicken owner when it comes to how many chickens you should start with. So personally, I believe that you should start smaller. Smaller is better because you can always grow into a larger flock. My first piece of advice is to check your city ordinances. If you don't know your city ordinances, that's something that you're gonna want to learn about before you get chickens. They're gonna have information in there about the rules around having chickens within the city that you live in. So your city ordinance might be what dictates how many chickens you get. Some cities only allow up to 2 chickens. So if your city only allows up to 2 chickens, that's where you're gonna wanna start. So be sure to check on your city ordinances and kind of gauge those numbers, and then think about starting small. Here where I live, I'm allowed to have up to 6 chickens. So I actually decided that I was going to start smaller than that. My first flock was 4, and I'll get into a little bit more about that, about my story, kind of towards the end of the video. So starting smaller, I believe, is better because you can give yourself a learning opportunity, really. If you start smaller with a smaller flock of chicks, you're able to then move them into the coop and then raise another batch of chicks. You'll be able to learn a lot more. You'll be more prepared for that group of chicks that's coming in second. You'll have all the supplies that you already need, and you'll just get another extra learning opportunity, especially when it comes to introducing those new chicks to your already established flock of hens. So this is what I would suggest for you, is to start small, especially because new chicken owners, it can become easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of information that's out there. You're going to be learning a lot day to day just by raising your chicks. So having that smaller flock can be really, really helpful. Another thing you're going to want to keep in mind is chicken death rate. Now, this is kind of a sad thing to talk about, right? But it is something that you have to be prepared for if you're going to be raising chickens. Death can happen. And when it comes to chicks, the death rate is 1 in 4 chicks likely aren't going to make it. That's about 25%. So that's pretty high. And when I first started, I didn't even realize that. I had not reached that piece of information in my research yet. So when I had one of my chicks pass away, I beat myself up over it. I beat myself up saying it was my fault. I could have done something better. I should have known. I should have seen the signs. But in reality, that can just happen. The first week or so of a chick's life is extremely stressful because they're constantly moving around, and that stress can carry on, and you might not notice it because they seem like they're exhibiting pretty normal behavior. But in reality, that stress from that first week of their life has caused too many problems for them to be able to continue into a strong hen, and they can pass. So it's important to know that chick death can happen. So if you're planning on getting a flock of 6 and you really want to have a flock of 6, you might want to consider maybe getting 1 extra chick just in case one doesn't make it. That's something to be aware of. And if you do lose a chick, do not beat yourself up, please. You likely could not have prevented that, and it just happens. Things just happen. And the thing that kind of got me through it was there's always more chicks. So when I started with 4, right? So I got 4 chicks and 1 passed after about 7 weeks. So we had kind of already had a little bond, and my little Gertrude, she was actually the chick that like favored me the most. The other ones were, you know, I could pick them up, but like Gertrude like loved hanging out with me. She would hang out on my shoulder. Like, she was a really, really good chicken, and she, of course, was the one that passed away. It was really, really tough for me, but, you know, after kind of doing that research and realizing, like, I likely couldn't have done anything to prevent it, and realizing I can get some more chicks to add to my flock, really helped me through that and really made me realize, like, okay, everything's gonna be okay. We put Gertrude to rest. We buried her and kind of put her back into our garden. And then I got more chicks. So we started out with the 4, then we lost Gertrude, so 3 moved into the coop. So we had 3 hens getting really close to laying age by the time I decided to get 3 more chicks. So I ended up getting 3 more chicks, and that was to kind of round out my flock to the number of chicks that I could have here in my area. So as I mentioned before, I can have 6, and so we had 3 in the coop, and then I got 3 more chicks. Now you might be thinking, why didn't you get an extra? Because one of them could have potentially passed. I didn't want to get an extra because I didn't want to end up going over our city ordinance. If all of them made it, then I would have had 7 chickens, and I would have had to figure out what to do with an extra hen. I would have had to figure out which one I wanted to send off to be away from the flock, and I would not have been comfortable with that. So I decided, let's get 3. If one potentially passes, that's okay, because then I can still introduce 2 new chicks to an established flock. That's important because you don't necessarily want to introduce just 1 chicken to an already established flock, because they're likely going to have a rough time finding friends and incorporating themselves into that flock being a lone chicken. So I decided to get 3, and all of them lived. So now we have a flock of 6. So if you're thinking about getting chickens, it's really important to just do a little bit of research, know your city ordinances, start small. If you're brand new and you're still learning, starting smaller is better, because I promise you can always get more. Chicken math is real. You're gonna want more chickens to add to your flock. It happens to every chicken owner out there. So start small and then get more. You can always get more. You can always get more chickens. That's exactly what I did. I'm so happy with my flock of 6 that I have. And it wouldn't have happened had I not experienced and gone through everything that I went through. That even includes losing a chick. So you can be prepared before you get your chickens and have an idea of a number that you want in your head. And once you happen to go to that farm store or go to that hatchery and see those chicks, don't get excited. Don't get excited and get more than you had planned for. Get your planned amount, and then you can always get more. Again, I'm going to be doing these videos every single week. So if you have questions about chickens, please ask me. I would love to answer them for you. Thank you so much for hanging out today.